Good afternoon, board buddies. Happy Easter, everyone. Welcome to the Boerboels Show. We got a very special Easter episode for everyone. This is our way to celebrate a new day. I'm Jordan Pittman. As you know, got my main man, Nate Dog, Savage Kingdom Midwest. What's up, bro?
What's going on, man? Happy Easter to everybody. We're here to talk about this black and tan and the Boerboel breed and, shed some light on where it came from. And, we'll just have a breakdown of what this gene is and what our plans are with it.
Yeah, because I'm tired of seeing people talk about it's a Rottweiler. It's a mix. It's a cross. It's not. It's actually evident. It's expressed itself in many other guardian type breeds. You look at the Rottweiler. You look at the hounds. You got black and tan coon hounds. You got Dobermans. Black and tan is a common occurring coat color and across the spectrum in many other different breeds. In my research, man, and we were just talking about this, I even found that the Labrador contains the black and tan genes.
Yeah, there ain't a lot of them. It pops up very rarely because it's not bred for. So there ain't a lot of dogs in the breeding pool that actually carry the gene for it. But it doesn't mean that it can't happen, because if the right two dogs are put together and all the stars align, it pops up. So there's a possibility.
And I think that it's very important to understand genetics is fascinating with me with our breed, especially because we have a very limited gene pool already. So we can kind of get to understanding with the failings of other breeds. Like you said, it's not commonly reoccurring with the Labrador because they have basically kind of eliminated that from their gene pool that is not sought after because it doesn't fit into the standard. So they have had those dogs, but they eliminate them, and then you see some health defects associated with the Labrador. And I always have thought that the Labrador was kind of similar to a Boerboel. What'd you say, though, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about they're tightly bred. I mean, and the Boerboel's the same way. They were selected from a select few dogs. Back when the Boerboel breed first came around, they bred a bunch of dogs and then picked the select few to call the breed, and then started the breed basically with those select few. And in a way, the labs, they've been, for those desired traits, they have kept them tight. They keep the lines tight. So, I mean, it's the same thing. You run into the health issues and all. You're more apt to run into the health issues when you don't have more dogs to, branch out to and breed. So dogs being disqualified for coat color is kind of detrimental to the breed.
Definitely. It's a big hindrance to the long-term success and vitality of a breed. When you start to eliminate these genetics, that's very valuable. And if you look, what I was saying was based off the temperament, though, and the way that the Labrador conducts itself, the way that the Labrador, I started off, my first dog was a Golden Retriever Chow mix. But the dog was very fond, very companion-oriented, biddable, looking always to please and achieve. So it is a very common amongst the breeds. Same thing with the Boerboel. I often compare the Boerboel temperament to the Labrador, but the Labrador or a Retriever, because it's still capable. It's more capable of defense. It's more equipped to deal with predators and threats.
Yeah, I agree. As far as companionship and all that, the Boerboel carries, the same thing, those same traits as the Lab. They're that family pet. They want to be glued to you, all that. They just have more of that guardian type side of them, more so than the Labrador. So, I mean, the Boerboel's just the jack of all trades. It's the best dog there is, right?
Yeah, you can't compete with the greatest dog of breed in the world, the history of all dogs. I do it, but we love all dogs. We celebrate dogs. Nice dog is a good dog is a good dog. So we celebrate all dogs, and we not knocking the Labrador. The Boerboel has some of those same traits and characteristics. You have hunting instincts. Remember we have hound in our Boerboels. So before I want to get started with my first dog, though, because I think that it's important to highlight this dog, and because I had achieved that black and tan genetic, and that was just last year, and it took me by surprise. It was with this litter of puppies that you see, And I was like blown back. I didn't know. You know, I keep dogs with other people, and you know, I'm like, bro, what's going on? I can't. These are black and tans, and I never had saw it before. I didn't think I had been line breeding tight on that cabaret stuff. Let me show my first dog so everybody can
Yeah,
see what I'm.
yeah. So on top of that too, though, so like we were just talking about the labs and how it can pop up, right? So you had two dogs that weren't black and tan. You didn't even know you was going to produce that, and all of a sudden you have this whole litter of black and tans. It's like the stars struck, you know, everything lined up. You had a whole litter of black and tans, pretty much, you know. So that just goes to show you that just because they don't show it doesn't mean they don't have it.
And I mean, it really took me by surprise. I was not expecting that. I was not seeking out the black and tans. I was not actively pursuing black and tan Boerboels. And I think that it is very interesting because as I watched them grow and develop, they end up being some very fine representatives of the breed. You know, I'm looking at my male that just turned 12 months old, and I think that I may have something there because he's a Balto son. He's gaining that thickness. He's getting his head is starting to spread. He got a great temperament. He's not a really aggressive at all. You know, he's not dominant where he's like a nutcase that he would be difficult to manage. So I think that it's important. You know, this is maybe we might be on to something there, bro. We might got something going here, bro. You
Oh,
know, we
we got
producing.
we got it going. We're gonna keep going with it. We're gonna, you know, every registry's got its standard. There's standards. There's registries that accept the black and tan. So we're gonna, for me, I'm opening up my selection of dogs to make a better dog.
Yeah, I think that it would be a tragedy to eliminate such a fine class of dogs from the breeding pool, specifically for the color. You know, me personally, I'm always interested as my goal is the total package of a dog that can run as well as a big still of a big dog. You know, Mother Nature often tells us when you get to one side of the spectrum towards exaggeration and extremes, you sacrifice a lot of the abilities. So, like for the larger dogs, it's rare for you to have a large dog that can run 10 miles, but that is the goal. And that's been my goal from the beginning. It's about totality for me. So I never really put color first as an emphasis, but as on a side note, it's not. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. So this is my first dog. I'm gonna share this, opening up the screen for everyone to see where we first started at. This is the dog that I imported. He was not a big dog at all. Uh, his name was Pluto, and this dog is heavy on the cabaret side, but let everyone see. So you see, he's a cabaret on both sides. Cabaret 219, Naomi is his grandmother on the mother side. Cabaret Sargi was a grandmother on the father side. Both of these dogs are daughters of Cabaret Klein Bucks, which is kind of like the founding dog. Cabaret Klein Bucks is the founding dog of the Cabaret bloodline. He was the original cabaret dog. You see here, he started from before him. There were no other cabaret dogs. It was Korma Bucks, Wakasan Mitzi, and never was able to achieve that. I didn't believe. I was like, wow, I've been using these. You can see some of my pedigrees here. That some of the offsprings, too many offsprings off Pluto. This was an extremely active stud dog for me. I mean, and he produced quite a few offsprings. So we'll go fast forward. So this is Pancake's father, Boogaloo. And again, so I wasn't able to achieve that. Wasn't able to achieve that. And it's done got very interesting. So what common ancestors do you see in some of your pedigrees there, Nate?
So with my black and tans, so like we discussed, they say it comes from the Cabaret lines. It doesn't necessarily have to come from their, their beginning. It could have come somewhere in the mix as well, like if they outcrossed to something or whatever to bring into their lines. But it showed up in their lines somewhere is what the backstory is somewhere. So whenever it started coming out, they just ended up having dogs in their lineage, even though they weren't breeding for black and tan. At some points, those dogs could have been passing black and tan to their puppies and on down the line. And so you bought a dog, that dog doesn't express black and tan, but somewhere in its genetics it could have had black and tan. So with Death, you got Cabaret, and then you got Mez Rubenstein, right? So Mez Rubenstein was his father, so you got Cabaret on his side, and then the mother I had Cabaret on her side as well. So it is kind of there's Cabaret on both sides. You had Cabaret on both sides of your dogs that you bred. Is that correct? When you got
Right.
yeah. So it seems like when you're getting Cabaret on both sides, it kind of seems like there's that possibility of having those genes, even if you haven't DNA tested for them, And that's the thing that we started doing now. We started embarking and DNA testing for color and, all the genes, health, all that stuff for all of our dogs. So we know what all of our dogs carry here. And so now we know when there's the possibility of making it.
Right. That was a good point that you just made. In order to really be sure that you're going to recreate this black and tan gene, you have to employ the DNA testing. We had it occur by chance from two red dogs, a Balto and Lady, but they closely related. But at the same time, in order to reproduce it again, we tried to repeat the breeding. We did not have any success. I think in order for us to have to achieve this with regularity and consistently, you have to do the DNA test, because here again, it's elusive, right? Rubenstein is not, you see, when I look at analyze a pedigree, I tend to look at the four legs at the back, and you don't see any reoccurring. It's not like he's tightly bred. Okay. What you say though, Nate?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So it's not something that you can just put for real on one particular bloodline. We know that it started, the Cabaret does have it there, but it's a combination of the genetics. It's a matter of the dogs coming together, and they have to carry this. What is the gene, Nate?
It's the AT gene. It's the agouti gene. It's out of the A loci. But there's a lot. We'll talk about that a little more too. I get like with a color breakdown of kind of how that stuff works.
Okay, yeah, because that's that's something that I don't understand. And I've been this is another, I found a site that you might I don't know if you're familiar with this site, but this is the Canine Medicine, where they do a lot of this studies and stuff on these dogs, different dogs, right? And that's where I found out about the Labradors containing some of the health issues associated with the Labradors. I was very interested in it. It was interesting because the biggest issue with Labradors is also a common issue with the Boerboel. Canine obesity related issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Overeating, oversize, growing fast, tendency to put on a weight, and then the things that follow behind that, the diabetes, the luxating patellis.
Yep. Hip dysplasia, things like that from being overweight, carrying more than their body should. Also, they say hip dysplasia is genetic. Well, again, you're looking at a tightly bred, line of dogs. Like labs are tightly bred, so you end up having those issues.
Right. And that's some of the things that we need to understand before we dive in too deep. So I also noticed, we don't want to do it cause any suffering of the breed just to please a color, just to see the color.
Yeah, we're only doing this with the right dogs and choosing the right dogs. Again, like we DNA test for the health with the embark and all that, to get because they send you, like, I think it's 256 genes when you do the DNA through embark. You can get 256 genes sent back to you that tell whether they're carrying copies of, certain things that it's more than what the Boerboel's even known for, but it highlights them for you, whether this dog's a carrier of this or whether it's not, or whether it's something to watch out for. So then you do everything in your power to avoid. We're not breeding just for color, so you don't want to go to another dog like let's say they have the heart condition, it's myocarditis, whatever it is,
Right, myopatha. How do you explain it?
Yeah. So if you have one carries one gene of that, you do everything you can not to, just because you're trying to get black and tan or whatever you're doing. And it doesn't matter. You're not breeding for color. You don't want to take that dog and breed it to another dog that's carrying that same gene, because you have the potential to put both those copies into a puppy. And that's how all genes work. One gene comes from their alleles. So they get an allele from each parent for genes, and each parent carries two copies or two genes, and then they send one to the puppy. So the puppy gets one from each parent, and that's what makes your puppy. So that's how black and tan pops up out of dogs that aren't even black and tan.
Right, exactly. And so the DNA test is not only is going to allow us to predict the color coats of the litters, but we also are able to genetically, with some security, produce healthy dogs.
Yeah, and it's not 100% guarantee, right? We're just doing everything we can to avoid those issues.
Right. So when you have a very limited gene pool, you need this alternative genetics because it carries the lines that is going to free and unlock health within the breed. I think that it's detrimental for us to eliminate dogs based off of the color. When we have a beautiful dog, not only is it beautiful, structurally sound, you got a great all of the features that the breed desires: impressive head, neck, chest, straight across the top. I mean, Death is a really well put together dog. For us to eliminate him from the gene pool, I think would be a tragedy based on the color. He is adding the very valuable genetics that was going to be very sought after. Listen, board buddies, we making it said right now. In the future, the black and tan genetics are going to be the key to the Boerboel breed. If we continue to breed within a certain parameters, we're going to be in a corner. We're going to breed ourselves into a corner. All the dogs will be related. And that is why I felt like this episode was important for us to release. We have to, because of the fate of our breed, the way that the direction that it's going, we starting to separate different classes of dogs. The black and tan is the answer for the future. The black and tan is the future of the Boerboel breed. And this is how we're going to get exactly where we need to be, is in terms of health, keeping the dogs vital. I mean, if you look at the litter that you just produced, that was what, 16 puppies?
Yep, out of one, four out of another. Yep.
That is significant. That is significant. That is letting you know that the health is there, right? Because when you start to get into inbreeding, depression, one of the first things that we're going to lose is vitality and mortality in the litters. You start to get the smaller litters. You start to have them. Now you ended up with 16 out of 16 survive, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. They're all healthy, strong, big, fat.
Yeah. And I think that is a very good indication that these dogs have that genetic variation, that hybrid vigor is what they say, what is alluded to. I see some of the other litters, some litters that we starting to see smaller and smaller litters, and then in different cases, it happens for different reasons. Not to knock at the smaller, because I prefer a smaller litter, but we just want to make sure.
I absolutely prefer a smaller litter. They supplementing on top of it. Autumn supplementing constantly. You got fight. You put 8 on her, and then you're bottle feeding 8 every round. Just to make sure they're all getting the right nutrients and all that. So smaller litters are a lot better than a 16 litter.
So what's the relation between the two litters are from mother to the mother and the daughter, right?
Yes, mother and daughter. Yep.
Okay, and the mother has the fewer puppies.
Yeah, she had the four, but that's just she had her first litter she ever had. She had 14. So I mean, it's the genes are there. She had 14 her first litter, and then her daughter Valkyrie, she had 16 her first litter. That was her first litter.
So it's safe. It's a safe bet to say that the fertility is not something that we starting to see dwindle.
No, yeah, they have good fertility. I mean, I don't know why the mother had four this time, or Serenity had four, but it could be timing, and that's all. It's not usually not sperm related. That's all up to how many eggs the female usually releases at a time, or whatever. You're going to have ups and downs in your litter size. 16's abnormally large, 14's abnormally large. So I mean, when you average it out, you're looking at an average litter, 8, 10, like that. So if you're talking she has 16 one time and 4 one time, you average it out, you're still having a normal amount of puppies.
Right. So it's also reoccur in nature. It happens, right? So you'll have a pack style where the mom, the sisters would help raise the litters. So she's a matriarch. Then the daughter has the puppies. She helps raise the puppies of the mother, the other litters, and it's like it's a family thing. It takes a village. All the puppies work together. All the mothers work together, and they nurture the puppies. So I think that it's another great thing. How do they get along?
Oh, mom and daughter.
Yeah.
They're good, and they'll nurse each other's puppies. Of course, we put them on them and stuff, but yeah, they have no problem. If you put a puppy in front of them, they believe it's their own. They treat it just like their own. It doesn't matter.
Right.
We've done that. We've done that with several dogs, even like let's say like Freya. Freya did 3 litters at one time because she had a small litter. Let's say she helped with 2 other litters. She had a small litter her first time, so same thing. She did her 3, and then sometimes we would take some from Zendaya and Serenity's last litter, and we would put them on Freya. So the thing about the Boerboel is they really truly, if you put a puppy in front of them, they don't really discriminate. They just start taking care of them.
That's another thing that we want to pass on from generation to the next generation: maternal instincts. Right. I don't think people is understanding that that's inherited. That's inherited. So when you have good dogs like that, you breed in 2, 3 at a time. You got pack dynamics. You can use one mom on the other. You got 12, 16 puppies on one. You can, pass off some, give the other mom a break, and it works. It meshes. Works really good. So I wanted to make sure that we. So let me ask this question. So ask you this, because I get this a lot, or you can clarify. The black and tan, does the black have anything to do with the black and tan?
No, the black, whenever you're talking about black and tan, the black is actually against you. So,
right.
So whenever, because if you have a dog that's dominant black, so like you got color locusts or color loci, right? So you have the K locus, which that determines whether the dog's dominant black or not. Well, if the dog is carrying one cop, so let's say you got a dominant black dog, and then you have a fawn dog, and you breed them together and you make a puppy. Well, that fawn dog, let's say that fawn dog carries the black and tan gene, the AT gene, right? Well, if you pass that AT gene from the fawn dog and you have a dominant black dog that passes the dominant black gene, that's going to override. Even if that dominant black dog has the tri gene and it passes it as well, that dominant black is going to override the A locus. You won't even use it, so it will not show tan points. If any puppy carries one dominant black gene, that cuts out all other colors, minus and I'm talking about tan points and stuff like that. So if you have dominant black, you can still have a chocolate dog because you go down farther in the color loci, and if they both pass a small B in that loci, they can turn them chocolate or dilute or whatever.
I saw that. I saw that. Because when
it comes to dominant black, if any puppy gets any form of dominant black gene, it will not show tan points or any other type of colors.
Right. So it has to be recessive. It has to be recessive. If the black really has absolutely nothing to do, you want to get away from the black gene.
You could, all the stars would have to align. You have recessive black dogs, so they they would have like two recessive black genes in the K loci, so they're still black. But then when you go down to that, so you have to have two recessive genes in the non-dominant genes in the K loci. So it'd be like KY, KY. If you had a KB, KY, it's dominant black. If you have KY, KY, that leads you down to the A loci. So by having two non-dominant genes in the black loci, that allows the A to choose the color. So that's where your fawn comes from. That's where your wolf sable comes from. That's where your tan points come from, or your recessive black. So when you get the KY, your fawn dogs are AY. So that gives them that fawn color. So that fawn could be a light fawn, it could be a dark fawn, it could be like a red sable color. That depends on the intensity. But that's where that comes from. So like that's dominant in the A locus, your fawn is. So then you would go down to the wolf sable type color, which would be AW, and then AT is actually third in line in the A locus. So if you had a dog that was AYAT, it's not going to show because that fawn sable's taken over the tan point. So you also have recessive black that's in the A locus, which is A, small a, small a. So that's where, so even if you had a non-dominant black in the K locus and you ended up with a recessive black dog that was carrying an AA, you could still possibly produce a black and tan dog. But again, you would have to really know what you're doing. It would have to break down right. And the AT gene would have to come from the other. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it and knowing how to finagle it and all that stuff. But what it comes down to is your tan point, your tri and tan point gene is the AT gene. So if people are trying to, do that, you have to have that, but you also have to have all the other recessive genes line up in order for that to show.
Right, for it to be expressed, because you have carrier, you have where it's expressed, and then you have a recessive, or how does it work? I'm learning about the genetics. It's very complicated. It's very complicated.
So yeah, and we could have made some charts, but again, you can Google the stuff, like you said, you went to the sites and all that. So in order for the tan points to be expressed, you have to be recessive, and
it's a recessive gene. The black and tan is recessive.
Yes, it's recessive because
you have black. Like I said, black is dominant.
Black is dominant in the K. So you have the K locus. So you're talking about pigment and stuff. Your K locus is that's your dominant black. So you can be homozygous like KB. So that's two dominant black genes. So that means that
you're getting one from the mom, one from the dad.
Yep. So let's say you have this puppy and it's dominant black. It would be KB. That's homozygous. It could also be KBKY, which means it's still black. It's carrying one dominant black gene, but it's carrying a recessive black gene as well, but it's still black. So in order to get the black and tan, you have to be KY in the K locus. You have to have two recessive genes, non-dominant genes in the K locus in order for the A locus to even work. So then when you go down to the A locus, you have to get that AT gene. So you can either be ATAT or ATA, and you would express tan points because A is, non-dominant to AT. So like if you're AYAT, you're just going to have a fawn sable dog because that AY is going to override the tan points. You see what I'm saying?
So Nate is very advanced. He studied this genetics. I know a little bit about genetics based off of my previous research, just being fascinated by inbreeding, line breeding, and so on and so forth. But so in summary, closing everything out, black can dominate. Black is a dominant color. 9 times out of 10, if you have a black dog, that's going to be because it's black dominant.
Hmm.
That's not what you're looking for if you're trying to reproduce black and tan dogs. Number two, we need to include as much variation within the breed as we possibly can. Inbreeding depression is real. We can learn from other breeds that has come before us. The Labrador case in point, I think, is a good, because in my experience, genetics come in packages. So you get certain characteristics based off of a bunch of different genes. It's the combination of genes. I think that there are things that we can learn from studying the Labrador, the shortcomings of the Labrador, because they are very common in their temperament, in the way that they, the coat colors. And in the future, we looking to reproduce the black and tans. DNA testing. If you're looking to reproduce black and tans, DNA testing is mandatory. What are your thoughts?
If you're doing it on purpose, absolutely. It's got to be mandatory, right? So, because you got to know what genes they're carrying. Because, like I said, even if one dog's a carrier and it passes it, you're still not going to show it if the other dog's not a carrier or the other dog passes the other dominant genes that override it. So you have to, whenever you're trying to do it, you have to, if you're trying to do it on purpose, not everybody, there's a lot of people doing it on accident, but if you're trying to do it, especially with two fawn dogs, which it seems like a lot of the black and tans coming out of more of the fawn or sable or red
Red,
dogs,
red dog.
because it's not getting overridden by the black. So then they're passing them AT genes and creating the black and tans on accident. But what it boils down to is you have to not have the dominant genes that are blocking it out. That's what I mean. There's probably a lot of dogs out there that nobody knows carry black and tan, or same when you talk about the liver coats, it's the same way. That's not a dominant gene, so there's a lot of carriers of the liver. There's a lot of carriers of chocolate that don't express it because there's so many other dogs that are dominant black, so they don't in that locus. If you get one of the big B in that locus that's the dominant, it won't turn chocolate because chocolate's recessive. It's the same as black and tan. So if you get one copy of the dominant gene, it overwrites it. So you just got to know it's going to be easier if everybody wants to do this or somebody wants to do this. It's going to be easier if you DNA your own dogs and you start breaking down your two dogs by yourself that you're going to use. I mean, that's just what it boils down to. That's going to be the easiest way to understand it.
It's the best. That's the strongest indication of you if you're going to reproduce, because you could be line breeding like me on the cabaret dogs for 10 years, a decade, and never expressed. But it's got to be, Balto is clearly black recessive because he comes from a black dog. So that opens it up, the possibilities for him to reproduce the black and tans. Nate, man, I really appreciate the time. I know it's Easter. I don't want to take too much of your time. Board buddies, if you didn't catch everything, we're gonna try to put some informational links. Maybe we can share some links with them in the discussion in the description, and for reference. And you could always rewind this, run it back over and over again. Case in point, though, summarizing this episode, it's all about DNA testing. If you want to be successful and you want to be certain that you're going to reproduce it. So I think that the dogs that carry the ATY gene, right? ATY gene.
AT is what you need.
AT. I'm gonna be looking for that. I'm gonna be analyzing all my dogs for this AT gene, because I think that is black and tan exotic is something that could be very sought after. This something's gonna be nice dogs. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future, Nate, with your dog, with Def, and seeing what he on top of some black and tan over the black and tan female. It's gonna be interesting. The future is very bright.
Yeah.
You got anything that you want to say before we close it out?
No, I mean, just to add to what you said, black and tans rising, it's an up and rising star in the Boerboel breed. You're going to start seeing it a lot more. People were already trying to do it, before we started talking about it heavy. After we posted Death, it kind of blew up. Everybody was loving him, so and there's some other great looking black and tans out there. It's just for some reason it's like it really took off after that. I don't know why. but a lot of people are trying to do it, and people had them before me, so I don't take credit for that. It's just he's the one that kind of set the Boerboel world on fire, it seems like. So a lot of people are trying to do it. So my thing is, if you're gonna do it, just make sure you're using the right dogs, and don't. People are gonna say you're destroying the breed. We're not destroying the breed here. We're trying to unlock new genes. That way, we don't have that such a big inbreeding, depression and all that type of stuff. So we're not destroying the breed. We're trying to help the breed, and make sure you use the correct dogs if you're going to do this. Don't just do it just to get the color.
Right. It's not about color. It's definitely not purely a color thing. It's got to be the total dog, considered a total dog. Hey, thank you, board buddies, for tuning in. I hope that was an informative episode. I hope that y'all picked up some of this information that we're putting down. If not, you can always run it back and do the research yourself. Research is key. Knowledge is power, board buddies. We're going to be keeping it coming fresh. New information as we discover things. We're going to constantly still always trying to learn and pick up new things, because at the end of the day, we want to make informed decisions. I appreciate y'all. What you say, Nate?
Hey, everyone have a happy Easter. Have a good day, man.
All right, y'all. Peace. I'll catch up with y'all real soon. To see y'all tomorrow. Don't forget, we're doing appraisals.
No rush, go on, move dumb. Back and forth, push and shove. Make your peace and love turn to peace and gloves. Now you got a deal run up. No rush, go on, move dumb. Back and forth, push and shove. Make your peace and love turn to peace and now you got a deal run up. Ball gang, gold man, old school, young jam.